guys, my name is Precious Onwabugo, and today, in honor of Black History Month, talking about a word that has been like a source of uneasiness between Africans and African Americans. Okay, so I'm just here doing my duty to promote peace and love and harmony. First of all, let's talk about the pronunciation of the word. It's Akata, not Akata, or Akata, okay, I'm being ridiculous now. It's Akata, put some accent into it. So now let's move on to the meat of the issue, the meaning of the word, okay? Contrary to popular opinions, Akata does not mean the word slave. It does not mean the word wild. It doesn't mean the word stupid or ignorant or the N-word. Or especially does not mean the word cotton picker. Let's get to the root of the word. This word is actually a Yoruba word, and Yoruba is a language in Nigeria. The root of the word emerged from meaning wildcat. Okay, calm down now. Calm down. Nobody's calling you an animal. English. A lot of words are translated in English to mean the closest idea that it could fit in the English word. Hopefully you get what I'm trying to say. So wildcat is not really like a wild cat. It's an idea of a cat that is not domesticated, which means that they don't live at home. So nobody's calling you a cat and nobody's calling you wild. This simply means that you're an African that don't stay in Africa. Now, let's forget about all of that because the word has so far evolved to mean just African American. And I mean, like a simple Google search could show you this. It doesn't mean any of the bad things that you guys think it means. Now, can it be used in a bad way? Absolutely. Okay. You ever heard of contrast tone? Yes, it can be. But what other word? Every other word can be used as a bad word. Okay. Good. But for Africans, it's a different relationship. It's kind of disrespectful to tell people not to use their native tongue or their language. It's just being disrespectful at that point. So you can't really tell us what to say and what not to say, especially if it's just a word that is not being negative, just based on how you feel about the word. No. That won't work. Okay, thought of all the people that think that Africans should come up with another word to say African Americans. Who is going to come up with another word? Me? The Nigerian president? The West African president? That was a joke. We don't actually have a West African president. We should. So like I said, let's move on. Okay? Thank you. My advice, I think everybody should be respectful about the word. Okay? Africans be respectful not to use that word in a negative way. And really, you can tell when somebody's trying to be condescending with a word. With the tone, the context of how they say it, you can tell, African Americans, when somebody's trying to be stupid with a word. And you can pop. No, violence is not the answer. Don't pop them in the mouth. Don't do that. Okay? All right? Good. And in turn, African Americans, you don't get to tell us what to say. Especially when it's in our native tongue. You don't tell us what to, how.
So in other news, YouTuber that I'm subscribed to, that I enjoy a lot, called Classic Nostalgia, made a video about African words for non-African people. And this is low-key a video response to that. From the beginning, both my parents are Nigerian. They're actually Igbo. Yay! I love being Nigerian. I love being Igbo. The food's bomb. There's a pretty awesome language that I get to speak, and I love Nigeria. So win-win-win. But there are some words that are used by Africans to describe non-Africans. They are not slurs. They're not used in a derogatory way. There's Oyibo, and there's Akata or Akata. They mean someone who's not African. They're often used to describe African Americans, but they can be used to describe Africans who aren't in Africa, or even white people. I've heard them used to describe both. So that's the first thing. B, as I said before, they're not slurs. They're not derogatory. Someone saying them to you is not saying them with any malice or ill will towards you. they're using it to describe you. And I've had like relatives make fun of me before because I have an American accent, call me Oibo. It's not a bad thing. Like I said before, when people say it about me, they're joking. And there's Akata. Now, Akata seems to be the one that people take offense to more easily. Again, both of them, I feel people just take offense to them because they don't know what they mean. And there's Akata. Now, Akata seems to be the one that people take offense to more easily. Again, both of them, I feel people just take offense to them because they don't know what they mean. Akata literally is a Yoruba translation for panther. People nowadays, and I'm going to say black people, if that offends you, I'm sorry, but the alternative is African American, and I personally, I know I have had friends, and, I've just known people who say, call me black, don't call me African American, because they don't really feel any ties to Africa, which I completely understand. I know Classic Nostalgia touched on this in her video, which I will actually link in the description, but...
Okay, good. But for Africans, it's a different relationship. It's kind of disrespectful to tell people not to use their native tongue or their language. It's just being disrespectful at that point. So you can't really tell us what to say and what not to say, especially if it's just a word that is not being negative, just based on how you feel.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Community Classroom. This is Dr. Tracey McCarthy, psychologist, attorney, and educator, and we are going to be discussing this issue of this word, Akata. Akata, Akata, that word. There are a few questions going around about who is Akata, what is Akata. Some people say it's just a Yoruba word for African American, American Negro, and to a lesser degree, Caribbean Black people. Some say it's a benign word. It's being taken out of context. People are making a big deal out of it. African Americans, Blacks, Negroes, Caribbeans are getting needlessly offended. And regardless, no one can tell Africans / Yoruba what they can and cannot say. So let's delve into this word, Akata, and its meaning and its implications. Now, according to Wikipedia, Akata is a word that is believed to be derived from the Yoruba tribe of Nigeria in West Africa. Yoruba is not only in Nigeria, by the way, but it's supposed to be a term that's used among Nigerians and other West Africans in the United States to refer to what are known as African Americans or American Negroes. However, there's been a lot of discussion about this word and what this word means. And according to Lovey, as you might recall from a previous video, the word Akata simply means wild animal, according to her. And so from a dictionary from the 1800s, you look up, this is a Yoruba dictionary, and it basically says Akata means wild cat. And so we're going to look a little further to see if Akata means anything other than wild cat in the Yoruba language, because Akata can also translate to jackal, which is an interesting idea. And so there are several iterations of what Akata might mean and what Akata might symbolize by extension. So in order to look a little deeper, we're going to look at some offerings from Narrowlands, and we're going to look at some offerings from some authors and artists. We're going to look at some other background information regarding kingdoms in West Africa, Central Africa, Negro land previously. We're going to look at that. We're also going to look to see if there are some issues related to folklore and symbolism related to Akata. And then we're going to finish up with a discussion about this idea that people love to talk about, which is freedom of speech and the responsibility that goes with that exercise of freedom of speech. In the recent Black Panther film, Prince Dr. Njadika served as the symbol of African Americans, American Negroes, indigenous Black Americans. He served as the symbol for that collective group in that film. And so we're going to look at what Akata might mean in other contexts. We're going to look at some other iterations of Akata and the implications for those iterations. And so when you do a translation, a computer translation of Akata from the Yoruba to English, what you will also come up with is hyena. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this idea of Akata being a wild animal, a wild cat, a panther, a leopard, a jaguar, a lion. You could go through all of the wild cats. And so we're going to look at the implications of that, the implications of Akata also possibly meaning jackal and significantly hyena. Okay, so we're going to first look at Narrowlands site, and it's a posting site where people post different questions and comments, and then people respond. It's a really meaningful website because they actually talk about some really meaningful issues related to history and culture, and it seems that the target audience involves those who are actually on the continent of Africa and those who are abroad. And so there was a question, why do Africans call African Americans and Black Caribbeans Akata? And one individual responded basically explaining, just like the dictionary translation that was shared, that Akata basically means hyena. They indicated that it is a degrading word to use on anyone because when you're calling someone a hyena, you're basically saying that this person is a scavenger. The person is being objectified. The person is a scavenger. They are not human. They don't do anything to survive. They are fairly parasitic. They don't want to put in any work. That they are basically good for nothing individuals. It also suggests that the individual on the receiving end or the collective cultural group on the receiving end of this basically is identified as living off of the hard work of others. Being a moocher, so to speak, not doing anything and having done nothing in order to live, in order to survive, basically being lazy and again, good for nothing, having made no accomplishments, no achievements, just living off of the scraps from the master's table. And here you will see a poem from, it seems like it's related to the slave trade that was going on in what used to be Negro land, the kingdoms in Negro land, which are, this is not the same area that you think of when you think of the Gold Coast and the Ivory Coast and the Slave Coast. This was considered the interior of Africa, closer to the Sahara. And so you can see in this very antiquated poem that hyena was also seen as savage, and hyena was also equated with slaves. And so you can see that there when they say, and as hyenas savage, they are the slaves for labor. going to give you an opportunity to read the poem. This is a very long poem, but this is a small portion of it. It's a poem and a play. So it sort of reads like a poem and a play. And you can see in the writing that they are talking specifically about upland slaves. They are on the border of the desert. And so we are not really talking about those who are, again, on that Ivory Coast, on that Gold Coast. We're not talking about Dahomey. We are not talking about Ghana. We're talking about what was known as Negroland. Now here we have another mention of this idea of a hyena, and this is important because this is related to a king of Dahomey by the name of Adanduzan, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. This is a king who was essentially written out of history, and he was highly acclaimed, however, during the slave trade. And there's some indication that some of the renderings of him now are basically sort of propaganda to support this writing him out of history. He was written out of history after he was deposed by his brother, who assisted D'Souza with becoming very prominent in terms of the slave trade. And D'Souza was a Portuguese slave trader, and many of his descendants are still in Nigeria to this day. They don't look like him because, of course, he was someone who you would have identified with as white. However, his descendants basically look like most people that you would see in Nigeria. And so one of the things that you see here is they portrayed this Adanduzan as a very cruel person, and he was said to have raised hyenas. And he would, throw live subjects, for amusement. All right. And so this is a prominent slave trader king, and he's seen as someone who also raised hyenas. And when you get some time, I encourage you to try to look this person up to get a little bit more information about the slave trade and this person's role in it, and also the brother who participated in the coup to depose him, that he coordinated with the Portuguese slave trader. Now, if you do some research on symbolism and folklore related to hyenas, you're going to come up with some very interesting findings. One finding is this connection in Africa related to hyenas and witches. And so many cultures in Africa apparently believe that witches can turn themselves into hyenas, that witches also generally have hyenas with them, almost as pets. And so there's a belief that hyenas sort of inhabit the houses of witches. There's also this other very interesting idea about hyenas, and it is that they are hermaphrodites. And so there is this belief that hyenas are sexless or genderless, that they are able to magically change sex. that they don't have any stable sexual identity or gender identity, that hyenas are seen automatically as same-sex oriented, if you will. And so there's a belief that male hyenas have sex with one another. Hyenas are also looked at as almost like the buffoons of the animal kingdom, because they are associated with humor and laughter for no reason, which is why you've heard the term laughing hyena. There is a sense that they lack any seriousness in life. They are also considered cowards. There's the belief that the hyena is a very cowardly animal. And you can see how this is contrasted with the idea of the Akata being a panther, a jaguar, a leopard, a crocodile. You know, this is a significant contrast with hyena and this wild cat idea. Hyenas are also sometimes seen as hybrids, like half man, werewolf kind of animal. And this apparently comes from an ancient kingdom known as Kaffa. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It almost reminds me of Kafir. It's Kaffa. And so there was that belief, and it's related to the Bornu people. And so hyena meaning or believing that it translates into I change myself into a hyena. And so it's very interesting ideas about hyenas. The other thing is that hyenas are seen as taking the leftovers. Again, so this goes back to that idea from Narrowland when they're talking about basically it's not an aggressive animal really, even though I'm going to show you some pictures that might suggest otherwise, but they sort of wait for scraps. The hyena, the Akata, waits for scraps from others. They wait to take advantage of the weakness of other people. They are not strong animals. They're not strong enemies. They're not strong entities in any way, shape, form, or fashion. They're considered in many ways weak, morally, internally weak, even if they might appear ferocious on the outside. And then there are also some proverbs associated with hyenas / Akata. One is a Hausa proverb, and the Hausa tribe is also a part of Nigeria. And it says, "It is the stinking bit of meat that catches the hyena." Another one says, "It is the hyenas of the same den that hate one another." So it is the Akatas of the same den that hate one another. And then a final one is, "A cowardly hyena lives for many years." And here we have a little snippet where an individual is posting, they're engaging in literary fantasy, and they're posting a part of a created story related to the Lion King. And it is a depiction of Akata in this story and in the Lion King. I don't know if you recall, if you've seen the Lion King, if you're familiar with the Lion King, there are these hyenas in the Lion King. So those would be the Akata. And this individual identifies himself, I'm assuming this because it says son of the Amazons, as a son of the Amazons. And the Amazons were portrayed in Black Panther as the female warriors of Dahomey. And so there is, again, this symbolism in that as it relates to Killmonger in the film Black Panther, and by extension, all of the Akatas that Killmonger represents. And so one of the things that when they describe the Akata, the person is talking about the Akata and says, you know, your kind never learns. And then you see further down below where there's a little talk about swiping the Akata's rear leg. And the Akata, by the way, is a matriarch. the Akata is this matriarchal fantasy person, the head of the Akatas, in this fantasy. And so one of the things that they mention is that this created a sting on the Akata and damaged her pride a little bit. So clearly you can see that an Akata, whether you're talking about an Akata as a cat or whether you're talking about an Akata as a hyena, an Akata is not something that is esteemed. It is really something that is looked down upon, that is marginalized, and most importantly, objectified as an animal, a non-human entity. And these depictions give an idea of, if you've never seen a hyena before, these give a depiction of hyenas and how hyenas are handled in Africa. They are considered animals. They are animals. They're put on leashes and muzzled. They are sometimes used in fighting. And so there is nothing of high regard about a hyena. A hyena really is seen as something that is degrading and degraded. And as we look a little deeper at some other discussions and depictions of Akata, we see that there is a literary series known as the Akata Witch. And it sort of expanded. It started off rather childlike in terms of the depiction, and you can see that in the lower left-hand corner there. And then it progressed to this sort of witch warrior witch depiction. And then in the upper left-hand corner, you can see where in that artwork that Akata is not only a witch, but Akata is a wild animal, a wild cat. Akata is associated with gold. Akata is symbolizes albinism, and which symbolically suggests that Akata is not completely Negro or Black or African, and those with albinism are often ostracized. So there are a lot of possible messages in here related to Akata. And please don't take this depiction as an indication of any face painting that any African Americans or American Negroes should be doing for Afropunk. And here we have some book review quotes where individuals are indicating that they understand that the word Akata is a slur. And interestingly, the one that's up at the top and to the left, that comment was actually flagged for being offensive. So I thought that was very interesting. And they basically said that the title of the book is synonymous with using the N-word and basically saying the N-word witch. And if you don't know what the N-word is, you can look that up. And so there is this indication online that this is this derogatory racial / ethnic slur related to those identifying as African American, Black American, Negro Americans, Indigenous Black Americans. So there is this understanding that this word Akata is indeed a racial slur. Now, as we wrap this up, let's make it very clear. There is nothing beneficial about calling someone or an entire cultural, ethnic, or racial group the word Akata. There's nothing edifying about the word. There's nothing exhorting about the word. There's nothing beneficial in terms of creating and sustaining healthy human relationships in terms of using that word to describe or to address other people. This term is a racial slur. It is also an ethnic slur. And the reason why I say it's a racial slur, because some people might not see it that way, is because the group that is identified by this word actually came from an area known as Negro land, hence the word Negro. And Negro land housed kingdoms and different races of people. Races were not understood the way they are understood now. Back in the 15, 16, 17, 1800s, race had a different meaning. It didn't simply mean black and white. It really was about tribal affiliation, and there were some biological differences noted, but they weren't always around skin color. And so this is really a word that attacks a particular group of people from a particular area in Africa who were enslaved. And they were enslaved by the individuals who are using the word. And when I say the individuals, I mean collectively. I don't mean that the individuals who are using it now were the individuals who enslaved people 200 and 300 years ago. And so that should be clear. That should not be a confusing concept there. It is, again, a racial and an ethnic slur. It is also a form of gaslighting, because in using this racial and ethnic slur, there is the narrative that this is a fine word, it's a beneficial word, it's a benign word, it really means nothing, and that people are taking it out of context and making a big deal out of it. That is gaslighting. Again, this is a manipulation in order to make people think that they are making a big deal out of nothing. It is done to make someone actually question their own perceptions of reality. And so it's not a healthy dynamic when that goes on. So when someone says someone's making a big deal out of it, that is a form of gaslighting. Now, these snippets that you heard at the beginning of the video were from a YouTuber going by the name of Precious and another YouTuber going by the name of Chi or Chai. I'm not sure which one that is. And another individual who has talked about the issue of Akata is Yvette Carnell and Search for Uhuru. And so this is also addressing their commentaries about the use of this word. And I will say that individuals are free to express themselves in whatever way they choose. This is not about a constitutional freedom. This is simply behavioral freedom. So people are generally free to express themselves, to write whatever they want to write, to say whatever they want to say. They have that power and freedom. But with power and freedom come much responsibility. So if anyone elects to use that word, they want to use that power, those individuals need to understand that there is responsibility that goes with that. And the outgrowth and the implications of that election of freedom will also be taken on by that individual. It's not simply where people just have freedom to do whatever they want to do in life. I know a lot of people believe that, where people have freedom to do whatever they want to do, but there is no responsibility that goes with it. There's always going to be a response to anything that anyone does in life. Some people use this phrase, treat others the way that you want to be treated. I have another phrase, treat people better than you want to be treated. Knowledge is power. Take care and see you soon.